Now, I've got plenty of evidence taken from across cultures. In the last 18 months, I've done exactly the same projects, same component parts of projects in America with an aerospace company, in Scotland in the public sector with a health and fitness organisation, and also in Kigali in Rwanda with a relief organisation, using the same tools, asking the same questions, and getting the same responses, the responses that people want to feel valued. A friend of mine who works in Silicon Valley said that would be a great thing in Silicon Valley if we were only valued. The most wealthiest plot of land in the world, perhaps, and yet so often people are not experiencing being valued. So when I was looking at this whole area of communication, how can we find a way of communicating the importance of experiencing being valued? So from a communication point of view, first of all, there was a whole lot of strange things happened. I'd been on the journey, the value the person journey, for about 14 years. Started off with a transformation of a steel mill in Pittsburgh. Now that's an interesting environment for anything to start off, because that's not a touchy-feely, hug-a-tree kind of environment. That's a kicky-punchy environment. So if we can work on the edge, perhaps it can work elsewhere. So I call that the journey has been from Pittsburgh to Kigali with stopover at Scotland in between. Kigali, as you would probably know, is the capital of Rwanda. And it's very strange for me here today because talking about Rwanda, Leslie Belinda, who was the person who got me involved in Rwanda way back after the genocide. Some of you will have heard Leslie speaking, and she's written books, and she's kind of a heroine of mine, and it's rather strange to have her in the audience here. But I have to thank Leslie for introducing me to people in Rwanda. Now, if you look at people's perception of Rwanda and they think of all the disaster, the genocide that claimed 1 million lives in 100 days, what good could come out of that? What good could come out of a failing steel mill? Well, it's actually interesting. One of the discoveries was that it's on the edge that we learn. We don't really learn an awful lot on the mountaintops. But it was actually through this involvement with Rwanda, they've come up with 2 words, and I want to just introduce these briefly to you. The 2 words, one is called Ikirezi, which is a Rwandan word for a precious pearl. And as a metaphor, if I say to you, you are an Ikirezi, I'm saying 2 things, actually. I'm saying that you're a precious pearl, and if you want to study pearls and find out their uniqueness and their value, that's great. But interestingly enough, in the culture of Rwanda, when you say to somebody that they're a precious pearl, that they're an Ikirezi, you're also saying, but you don't know how valuable you are. And when I first thought about that, I thought, wow, that's what it's about. We can have these words that say, I am valuable, and I can maybe give myself affirmation, or maybe somebody else gives me affirmation, but there is this question mark. I don't really know how valuable I am. So on one end, you've got this word, Ikirezi, precious pearl. And then another word has come into usage internationally in the last few years called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a South African word, although it is adopted across the African continent. It's really like a philosophy of interdependence, interconnectedness, interrelatedness. It's about community. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he promotes this heavily through the Tutu Foundation, this whole concept of communities coming together. And as we're looking at this initially from a commercial point of view, we're saying, right, there's one thing, me valuing the community, but unless I value myself, I'm going to finish up perhaps being dependent on the community. So you are a precious pearl, value yourself, have high Ikirezi and high Ubuntu, and it's merging these 2 together that actually makes the difference. So how do we bring concepts like that together in a short presentation in Glasgow on a winter's day when the subject is about passion for work? Well, my suggestion is that we bring it together in the context of story. Your story. Our story. And when you think about it, and perhaps this is a new way of thinking about it for you, there are 4 parts to your story, because I know that you have a story, and I've got a story. I don't know the details of your story, but I would suggest there are 4 parts to your story. First of all, there's a central character. So if it's your story, you are the central character. You're center stage in your own story. The second part is the theme. What is the context of your story? What is the purpose? What has been the meaning of your story? You might not be able to articulate that, but it has a purpose, it has a meaning. And maybe other people can help you with that. So you're the central character, you have a theme, and you go, next time you go to see a film or watch a play, look for the central character, look for the theme. And the third point that each one of you have had, and each one will continue to have, is conflict. Managing director of a design company said to me recently, I don't want to have conflict in my life. None of us really want to have conflict, but it goes with the territory. So you've got the central character, you've got the context, and you've got conflict. And then the fourth thing is conclusion. When you go to a story, you want to know, what's the end of the film? What were we moving to? What's the central character moving to with the theme? What conflicts have they gone through? Well, my thesis for today is the conclusion for your story so far is today. You know? I hope you get home. I hope I get home. And if I get home, the story will go on. And what I'm suggesting is that perhaps there's an opportunity through some of this stuff to write some new chapters for your story, the story that is uniquely yours. Okay, so we've got the evidence. We've got the communication by metaphor, by story. Yours is a wonderful story, although you don't believe it. So other people would possibly recognize it. And everybody you meet has got their own story. But then we go further up. There's the action, the action. I hear all of this stuff. You know, and it's maybe made me think a little bit deeper about my own journey, my own story. What do I do? We all want to know, what do I do? What is the strategy? Well, for Ruben Matthias, it was making great ice cream. If he hadn't made great ice cream, we wouldn't have known about Häagen-Dazs. And there's so many people, if you think through any scenario, what actions do we take? And as far as this lunchtime's concerned, I'm suggesting there are a number of things that you can do. We live in this amazing world of technology where we can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. We live in this 24/7 world, and it can be a pain, but it can also be a blessing. As a result of the technology, as a result of research that's taken place over the last few years, there have been some very interesting tools have been developed to help you to shine a light on your uniqueness, your value, and your talent. And my argument, if you're serious about rewriting or writing some fresh chapters in your Ikirezi Ubuntu story, you could start off by standing back and saying, right, what really makes me tick? And there's some tools have been developed in that. And let's find out what my uniqueness is all about. But this isn't it's not all about self-development. This is basically understanding your own uniqueness and at the same time understanding and valuing the differences between yourself and others. That is the key. Love your neighbor as yourself. The golden rule. But how do we do it? What I'm suggesting, and I know that Big are considering some initiatives on these areas, if we would only but stand back a little bit, take a little bit of time out and say, okay, I want to write some new chapters in my Ikirezi Ubuntu story. Where am I going to start? I'm going to start off with me. I'm going to start off with my friends. I'm going to start off with the colleagues I work with. This is not airy-fairy pie-in-the-sky stuff. This is actually based on hard research and practical stuff that's available. And, you know, I'm talking about having taken some of these tools into Silicon Valley, into Kigali, and into Coatbridge. And you've got an interesting triangle there. And actually, people begin to waken up when they understand that if they would only value themselves and value others,